Mr. Brantley, I just want to thank you so much for agreeing for this interview today. And, you know, it's funny because the first time I met you was at the gym. And you came in with your veteran hat on, and you actually gave me something. And I had this on my fridge ever since. Do you remember meeting me at the gym? And it's funny because, you know, you're working out with all, you know, everybody, all the younger folk.
I forgot that's where we...
Yeah, that's where we first met. And you were just filled with so much joy and light about you. And this card says anytime resolutions and, you know, a new day. And it's talking about making the most of every day. And the fact that you are a World War II veteran and also a veteran of Korea and a veteran of Vietnam, I was like, okay. If he'll talk to me, I'm gonna interview him.
and the Cold War.
You fought in the Cold War, right?
Right. A lot of experience on that.
That's a good one. I hope that doesn't go over anybody's head because that's a good one. No, but I find you extremely inspirational, and even when I first met you, I thought I would love to just sit down and hear your stories. So basically, that's what I'd like to do today. I'd like you to just take us back. Like, where were you when you heard the news about Pearl Harbor being attacked?
I was at a friend's house on that Sunday, and we was out playing touch football.
Okay.
And the friend's father came out of the car, and he said, "Boys," he said, "Pearl Harbor been bombed." Well, as a 15, 16-year-old kid, I thought, my brother is Navy, and I got some stickers from Hawaii, and I wondered possibly he was there. And the other kid, where's Pearl Harbor? Where's that? But anyway, so that's how I found out it. But I found out later, my brother's ship was not at Pearl Harbor at that time. His ship was, but he was back going to school in the States. So his USS New Orleans was not damaged much. Okay. But that's how I found out.
Yeah. What an interesting window into time. So, but your brother, Charles, right?
John, yeah.
He was part of the Navy.
Yeah. And
he was then soon after deployed to the Solomon Islands, is that right?
My brother, of course, Depression and none of the... he dropped out of high school like all the siblings, but anyway, he joined the Navy.
Yes.
Prior to the war, and then the war broke out. So he was on the train as a torpedoman. So he was in school at the time of Pearl Harbor. Wow. And it's so later we got the word that. His ship was sunk at Guadalcanal. And it's an odd thing how you find out news. I was a basketball manager, and we were down in Beaumont, Texas, playing basketball. And that morning, Saturday morning, I was out in the lounge, and basketball coach was sitting over there reading the paper, and he kept looking at me, and finally he came home. He said, "Floyd, I'm sorry, your brother been killed. It's in the newspaper." And Beaumont paper said, "Outstanding Dragon football player killed in action." And he said, "No, we was in the pickup truck, couldn't go." And he said, "You can go back tomorrow with us, or I can put you on a bus." I said, "Well, I'll just wait, go back next day." And so I came back to Nacogdoches, and but it's odd, my father left the family early, and I was left my mother, and the other kids already left, and so I had to go to school and try to work 3 jobs and try to put milk on the table. But anyway, we lived close to downtown, and said, Mother always write son every day. And so she write him 2, 3 days a week. She said, son, go and mail this letter up post office 3 blocks away. And they going to your brother. And so anyway, I would go up there to my post office, and I find that the man on a bicycle too, but he was carrying a bag or something. And I wondered, what are you doing? So I noticed that he would stop at a house and knock on the door, and then you could hear crying. Mm-hmm. And what are you doing? He delivering a telegram that your son has been killed, your husband. And then, of course, a few months, a year or so later, then my mother gets one from him. Yeah. And so anyway, it's odd how things work out that way.
Yeah. Did you have any other siblings too?
Yes, I had a sister and a brother. There were 4 of us. Mm-hmm. And so they, don't know, they made the brain, it felt like they couldn't learn, but they dropped out of school. But yeah. It's, so I was in 10th, 11th grade. Mm-hmm. So I get a letter from the draft board that you've been, have to report for duty. And at the bottom of it, they type, Mr. Brantley, we will defer you to end of this semester. But I still couldn't graduate, so I decided to go on in. So I took a pair of scissors, and I told them, and cut that off, put it in my billfold. And I go in and said, Mother, I'm sorry that I got to go to war. And she said, son, I already lost one son. And she said, I was hoping one of you would finish high school. And I said, well, maybe someday. And so I apologized later.
Right. That little strip you kept in your billfold, didn't you?
But anyway, so I was trained Navy, went on Russell Island, Guadalcanal. And when I had changed every one fall, I pulled that thing out. I could still be in high school. Yeah,
you regretted that quickly, didn't you? Yeah, you got homesick, right?
And but we after the brother killed, then we were able to find employment. She was able to find an apartment house, so we moved to Lufkin, okay. And that's where I got called in. Yeah. And so
you were part of the Navy, yeah. Like your brother.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. And you were part of the medic team, a pharmacist?
Yeah. Yeah. Pharmacist. Okay. In the Navy, of course, you got your doctors, your nurses, and then you got the corpsmen. Now, in the corpsmen, we finished Balboa Park and all the training that taught by doctors and nurses. So they quit. We stopped a 6-week training at training base, and they said those that go into school will not get a leave until after school. The other men will go to sea. And anyway, so I never been away from home, and I thought, my goodness. So after the training at the Balboa Park, they said, well, no leave, off you go to overseas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was 18, never been away from home, so, to be shipped on out. But it was very interesting. And I went back to Balboa Park in San Diego a few years ago, and a man working in the store said, one of the nurses that taught you was in here. Oh. And she said she taught that in 1944. But anyway.
That's so neat.
So a lot of the nurses, so anyway, so.
So by the time you landed at the Solomon Islands, which is super far away from Lufkin, Texas, by the way, right? Yeah. It was 1944, is that correct?
Correct,
and most of the combat had died down, but you...
it's on that, that's right. It's
right, and you were in charge of helping the wounded, right?
Wounded, that's right. But as we left, I had I became a Christian when I was 16, and I had my New Testament issued by the government.
Okay.
The American Bible Society would give them to the government, and they would have the servicemen get it.
That's interesting.
I got it over there. But
you do?
Anyway, so as we left San Francisco and heading for the Guadalcanal, they tell us, that we cannot tell you where you're going for 3 days out.
Oh, wow.
And all the 5,000 sailors and soldiers on that ship, they were told, and they knew ahead of time, said, some of you will not come back. Some of you come back wounded, and others come out okay. Mm-hmm. And still didn't know where we're going. Mm-hmm. So all the men, they, Christian, non-Christian, they started praying at night. And because they didn't know whether to come back or not. And they started reading the scriptures. Okay. And but anyway, of course, later on, they said when submarines will be watching us, and we could be sunk with these 5,000. So anyway, some of the men would read the scriptures and pray, and for 3 or 4 days, and then that's okay. They're safe out here, no submarine. But anyway, so we landed first at New Caledonia, and that was stationary. And from that 1,000 men on at French Port, then they send you out to different fronts and Guadalcanal and Gilbert and so forth. Okay. So then we were sent to a small island 60 miles from Guadalcanal. Mm-hmm. They called the Russells.
Okay.
So we set up a fleet hospital there.
Okay.
See, when the men are wounded, they go from there to the field hospital, and then they ship them from there to us.
Okay.
And so a lot of things happen at the hospital. We have all these wounded men, and they would come in saying, "Senpai," and they always faithful to each other, always faithful to
the
Marine,
right.
Senpai and Ellie, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you find that you ever had to go above and beyond the physical needs and kind of help them mentally too? Because I'm sure there's a lot of that.
I tried a lot of that. Odd thing, I always tell we go in and all these wounded men, and the commanding officers stand there, and all the doctors and nurses and corpsmen. And he said, no, we taught all these wounded men, your job is to take care of those men regardless. And I had officers' quarters. You had the colonels and lieutenants, all those. And he said, however, if one of the local natives comes in here, he's been shot or fell out of a tree, whatever, take him, but take care of the troops first.
Yeah, right.
So
triage the Americans
first.
That's
right. So this kid come in, native kid, about 16, and the commanding officer looked at him and tried to find out where he wounded. And he finally said, Brantley, take this man and see where he's wounded and talk to him if you can. So I set him on the cot, and I stood at one cross, and I kept trying to find out where he's wounded. And he kept looking at me, and I said, you speak English? Yes, I speak English. And I said, were you wounded? And she showed me on the leg, had a gash on that. And he kept smiling. And I said, will you live here on the island? Yes, we are headhunters.
Headhunters?
My mother and daddy, and by train, headhunter. I noticed he kept looking at my head. I said, and
so wait. So he's a headhunter, and he was looking at your head.
Yeah. Okay. And then he finally laughed. He said, I said, are you a Christian? Yes, I'm Christian. And he said, I said, who told you about Christ? Missionary, paper tin missionary. I said, where are they? Oh, some the Japanese did this.
Oh, wow.
Others up in the mountains. And others escaped the island. And said, we got talking. And he said, looked at me, he said, let's sing song. And I, 18, he was 15, 16. And I said, what'd you like to sing? Anything. So I said, okay, Amazing Grace. And so we started singing, Amazing Grace, how sweet. And he was singing his native language.
Oh,
and I was
beautiful.
And so everything got quiet. All these men were talking. They got quiet. Where's that noise coming from?
So it's a story of a reformed headhunter who is
Yeah,
now singing Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite unique.
Oh, yeah, but otherwise, then, but anyway, a lot of...
Didn't you have a corporal maybe, or a sergeant that came into your tent and you patched him up and he was all good, and something about a coconut? What happened there?
Oh, that's one man, one of the officers, we got him well and ready to go back duty. But he walked out on the porch he walked out and the coconut tree, the coconut fall. Mm-hmm. So one fell on his head, knocked him out, so I had to take him back in.
And it's not funny, but it's funny. It's funny. We can laugh. It's been enough. It's not too soon. Enough years have passed.
But anyway, as a young Christian, you'll find throughout the service, wherever you go, you meet other Christians.
Right.
And we have Bible study, we have a change or prayer together.
Yeah.
And the big problem, we have to ask permission, Captain, where can we meet? And one said, you can't meet. And we found a place anyway. But anyway,
good.
So it may be on a coconut tree, aboard ship, and maybe at the bottom of the
right.
Ship. But anyway, you have Christians joined together wherever.
Yeah.
And on the side, I was in major airport one time in Minneapolis and going to catch a plane. I noticed about 7 in the morning, noticed a group over there praying or something. And there was a pilot and there's 2 stewards and flight attendant. But anyway, so I didn't know what they're doing over there. And so when they left, I asked one of the flight attendants, I said, are y'all having prayer? He said, yeah, all the Christians. We get together for prayer. And I said, well, how'd that look when the pilot is praying over there and people are going to get in the plane? I said, oh, they feel safer.
Yeah, he's not saying, help me learn how to do my job real quick. He's just, be in charge, God, right? That's awesome.
But another unusual problem, one Christmas, 1944, we're going to have a Christmas service on the island there.
Yeah.
So we invited the local natives, some of them former headhunters, to our service. And they all have news and ears and things. They come, and they kept saying, why are we here? Who is your Christ? Who is he? Y'all talk about Christ. Who is he? Tell us about Christ. And so some of them converted there.
Wow.
But in other words, some of them never heard the name Christ before. And, anyway, so a lot of time, you have men in wheelchairs and all the time they'll be crying or be depressed. I try to talk to them and a lot of time they'll say, Corman, I said, I need a pain. I got pain in my leg. And I said, Colonel, I said, you don't have a leg. Yes, I have a leg. I got pain. And so, anyway, I don't know what it is, but a lot of time when we bandage his legs, it's off, he feel pain down below here. Anyway.
I've heard of that. It's a phantom pain because the nerves, when the nerves stop, there is still a sensation that keeps going.
Yeah,
So it's a phantom pain.
yeah.
That's
They
very
call it
interesting.
phantom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I just came up with that, but I think it is a real thing. I think that's what they call it. But
And
so
to think at the same time we captured a young kid, Japanese, and they were 18, and this prisoner of war of about 15, 16. And we called him, and I think he was slipping down out of the hills getting our food, but we put him in a pen about 10 feet round and all by himself. So I had to go out there and check on him, see if he needed anything to eat or he was wounded. So I walked out there and I looked at the gate and it wasn't locked.
oh,
And so I had to make up my mind. I said, should I lock the gate or could I try to talk to him? But odd thing, wherever I went, he was there looking at me. I walked around the pen, he followed me all the way around. And I don't know what he was thinking, but as I looked at this kid, I could see fear, I could see hatred in his eyes because he hated Americans. But wherever I went, and I thought, even then, I wonder if his parents know where he is, where he's dead and alive. And I'm sure they are praying for him. But the stare that he looked, and I don't know what he was thinking about me, but anyway, so I ran on around, and he kept following, looking at the gate, and I knew I had to do something, so I eased on around and fixed the gate, and then the kid stood there, and I left, but he had already had food, and he wasn't wounded, but another thing happened, not on our island, but not too far away. The Japanese were better. They were better night fighters, and they made better torpedoes. Mm-hmm. And my brother was a torpedoman, and that's another story, but they have a hard time getting them off. But anyway, the Japanese, they didn't carry much equipment, and they go up coconut trees and hide, and then the Americans, but anyway. So in this particular case, it's been proven it was right. This Marine was fighting the tall Japanese. Not very many Japanese were big, most of them.
right.
So anyway, so in this case, and it's been proven to be correct, the Japanese had this American soldier down in a ditch, and they were fighting. And the Japanese pushed the soldier back and pulled out his gun, and it had a sword on the end. And he went back, he was going to hit him, according to the soldier, hit him in the stomach. And as he pulled back, he stopped. And he said, in English, he said, "I am a Christian, I cannot kill." And he walked on. And so they questioned the soldier that survived that, and there was another case, and they made sure he wasn't telling a story or something like that. But it was proven it correct. So you have a Christian in the enemy force as well, you see. You had Christian soldiers. And
yeah, you don't often think about Christianity making its way to Japan at the time,
Yeah.
And so that's very interesting.
But
Yeah.
talk about, years later, I was in Korea, went back to Korea, and I was...
So you were in Korea, too.
Oh, right,
And
yeah,
so,
later.
but you were in Navy in World War II, and then you switched over to the Air Force?
Air Force, yeah.
So what made you decide to switch over?
Well, okay, I was stayed in reserve, and after I graduated from Baylor, and they said, "You can go home, we'll call you for a career." So I went back to Lufkin. And so I was 25, and so I got a call in the First Baptist Church in Lufkin having a youth revival. And they said, Floyd, will you be an usher? And I said, okay, I'll be an usher. So anyway, so I was ushering, and so I noticed a young lady walked in, late as usual. And so anyway, I showed her down close to the front, and she, no, that's not the last time. She said no. So I moved her back. And anyway, so after the service, she started to leave out before she came in. I rushed over, and this beautiful lady, and I introduced myself, and got visiting with her. I said, well, I'm glad you came tonight. She said, thank you. And I said, could I have a date with you next Tuesday? And so she smiled, agreed. And I got thinking, I know someone else asked her. I said, what about the week after next? She said, I lined up 3 dates in a row, which I did.
That's
well,
wonderful.
That interfered with her boy that she's going with.
And what was this young lady's name?
The young lady, her name is Mary Elizabeth Pearson. She went to a Beth Pearson.
And she didn't stay at Pearson forever, did she?
No, she didn't. So in a short while, we got engaged in a few months, and then I got shipped to Korea. But what happened there I switched over. When I was in the Navy Reserve, I stayed in Reserve after the war. And Korean War broke out. They called and said, we need a medic on destroyer. You're going to Korea. So anyway, I went to Dallas. And I said, look, I couldn't finish high school. I had to drop out. I went back. Down in Baylor, and I didn't know how to drop out. So I said, anyway, I can stay and finish Baylor. And they said, no. So I went back to Baylor. I ran into the Air Force TC officer.
Yeah.
And I explained the situation. And I said, anyway, I could get in the Air Force, and I could stay and finish. And he said, well, Mr. Brantley, if you already got orders from Navy, you're pretty far gone, but I'll try. So anyway, he contacted the 8th Naval Division and see if I could release from those orders. And they agreed, so they sent my discharge from Navy to the Air Force. And he wouldn't give it to me until I signed the Air Force. So that's how I
Okay.
went to Air Force.
But to go back to that story really quick, where you originally enlisted in the military and you hid from your mom about that deferment from graduating, being able to graduate from high school. They were going to let you graduate from high school
That's
first.
Right. But
so you promised to your mom, didn't you?
I said, I hope to, I will someday.
Yeah.
And, but anyway,
But she did. I love that.
anyways, I came back with a worn up piece of paper about that white. I apologized.
Yeah.
Oh, son, did you do that? But anyway.
Right. That's sweet, though, that you made good on your word. You apologized, and you graduated high school as a 21-year-old? Is that right?
I was 21, and I went back the class of 1900, got the year, but anyway, so all the youngsters, 16, I'm older, and they kind of took an older person back, and pretty well, until I started dating their girls, and they didn't like that.
Oh, how funny. You were the coolest man on campus until you started dating their girls. That's hilarious. Well, and then you mentioned Baylor, and that's my alma mater as well, so that's pretty cool that we're both Baylor Bears.
Yeah,
I love
the
that.
Baylor Bears, that's right.
So then,
anyway, it was a, but an odd thing, and I didn't make the best grade. I guess I got it by the grace of God, but anyway, odd thing, and this friend of mine, and his daddy was a preacher, and they moved around a lot. And he said, Floyd, we doubled dates, and he said, Floyd, I want to be a dentist. And I'm on the boat to Baylor. And would you drive over to Waco with me? And I said, yeah, I'll drive with you. And so we got to Baylor and went to the registrar office, and he talked to Mr. Smith. He said, Charles, he said, where did you graduate high school? He said, a small town near Beaumont. My daddy was a little preacher there. And did you have chemistry? Well, no. Did you have biology? No. And he said, I'm sorry, we can't accept him. You don't have a background. And I was sitting over there like a dummy. He said, Florida, why are you here? He said, how about you come to Baylor? I said, well, I'm here for the ride. So he got talking about how good Baylor was. And he said, well, he didn't ask about the grades. But anyway, so he said, well, I said, okay, I'll go to Baylor. So anyway, I got his transcript and then said, you're accepted. I don't know how, but anyway, grace of God, I got in Baylor.
Yeah, with a teaching degree, is that right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The BBA.
Yeah.
And so I went back being honored by the president. I said, what did you get honored for? For being the oldest with the lowest grade to graduate from Baylor. See, I was older than the other student at Baylor.
Yeah.
And
for a good reason, though. It felt good.
And but anyway, so the college experience at Baylor, a lot of.
Good school. So then you were in Korea in the Air Force now.
That's right.
And you, what was your position there? What was your job?
I had to go to additional training, what we call loadmasters. And so they sent us back to Japan. And in that class, you had sergeant, you had captains, you had lieutenant, and you study how to do the weight and balance. And it's very complicated to do it on a calculator. You see, like the aviation gauge, is 7.5 pounds per gallon. Well, when you load the plane, you got to consider, well, as that plane flies, it's assuming less weight.
Right.
And then if you load troops too many on one side, then it won't fly well. If you got a 50,000 pound equipment, you got to know where to put it. Yeah. So it's had to do, weight and balance.
Very important job.
And then it's all computer. But
right. But back then it was calculator, right? So it was
hand calculator. It's very complicated. And some of the other officers, it was taught by a sergeant who really knew math. But anyway, in order to really consider the weight balance.
Yeah.
Now, I only had one case, and I had 10 loadmaster under me, and they was loading this plane. And they had this heavy box of damaged equipment to go back to Japan. And he did it. Then I checked. I said, no, you're off. And so he kind of got upset. And I said, move it. According to my figures, you got to move it more to the left, so many degrees.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, but I think I'm right. Well, of course, we took off, and it was smooth. So I decided to take a trip to Japan. So I asked the captain of the C-124, he came back and said, Lieutenant Brantley, you want to come up front? So I flew the plane, and I wasn't a pilot. And he said, you find anything different? I said, no, smooth. He said, whoever loaded this plane is very good at it because it's very smooth control. I said, well, I had a sergeant doing it, but it had to be some adjustment in it. He said, well, so the loadmaster is very essential because if that plane is too overweight and you have to really pick it, won't fly or it could crash.
Right.
So I had to weight and balance.
Yeah.
And And anyway, so then that's what we did. And
That sounds like. Were you also in the Air Force with Vietnam?
okay, I had the time in. I was driving here in Arkansas, and I got thinking. I was 50 years old, and I thought, I got Navy and Air Force, and I got 15 years. I'll never be able to retire. And I got thinking, if I could get back in, and the Vietnam War, and I told my wife, I said, what? You get back in? You're too old, and you may get killed, all that. I said, well, So I knew the lieutenant governor at the time. He was a Marine, shot up. And I talked to him, and he said, Floyd, I want to send you to General Bailey. His father was governor of Arkansas years ago. I went out there and explained to the general. He said, well, first, you're too old for a captain. And I said, I realize that. He said, I'm going to write to Washington and see how we can get you back in. And so I knew ahead of time. So he called back and said, well, you can do this. You can resign your commission and then go back in as sergeant. Okay. And we have a base, Little Rock, and Hot Spring. And so I took a chance and went to Hot Spring, and I decided to be a cook. Electronic, the unit at all electronic. I wasn't good at electronics, so I cooked for Air Force for 5 years, because then I knew my time's up. And so I told the sergeant, I said, I'm getting out. He said, you don't have 20 years. You got 2 more years. I said, no. My records show I got 20 years. Our records show that. I said, okay. He said, if you get out, you can't get back in. So I decided to stay 2 more years to make sure. Yeah. And so I stayed 2 more years and retired. And then I started drawing. When I get 60, I started drawing the retirement pay. Okay. Yeah. And but anyway, so I was right. I ended up with 22 years. He was wrong. But anyway, that's how I got that war.
Yeah, you were loader in the plane. You knew about specifics, so he should have trusted you.
That's right. But in between at the other wars, at the Korean War, and then we had the Cold War in the 50s. Yeah. Yep. And I volunteered to work there. Of course, still not full time, but anyway. And we did a lot of work out of a certain building here in Conway.
Oh, okay.
And it's still there. Huh. And all the equipment in that building, and if we're going to be bummed, all the top people in Conway, the mayor, everyone would go there.
Oh, interesting.
They're safe. And I'm going back to visit, but you go down, it's a fire station right now. You go downstairs, and all the beds on spring, your commodes, everything is on spring. And if you're in there during the atomic blast, everything going to give.
Oh, interesting.
So everything in that building today.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, well, don't tell us the exact location. No, that's good.
But anyway, so I ran into a retired general at UCA, and got talking to him. I said, is there any way I could visit a missile site? Oh, yeah. And he said, ooh. He said, I'm going to take it at Congress, but I'll try. So he called and said, you can come and we'll take you down. And I said, this man brings some young people. So I brought the preacher from Charles was 15, 16. So I brought a lot of young people with me. And so missile site, so they Air Force met us, took it up there, and those big doors opened and went down. And I mean, impressed those kids.
Wow, yeah.
And So I always remember I stood by this missile, beautiful missile. I was 4 feet from it, and it had a sign, "This missile could be in Moscow in 30 minutes." And how many people it would kill. And I looked at the thing, but at the same time, Russia had missiles. It said this could be in New York City or San Francisco in 30 minutes.
Wow.
But
It's an ominous reminder,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And but anyway, a lot of tensions in at that time, but do you realize that missile's still open? It's bed and breakfast. You can go and sleep.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, you go out of here on 64, and there's an 8-mile store, and you turn left there.
That's so
And
cool.
the man bought the land, and they failed to, all the other missiles covered up.
Yeah.
And, but, so he has a bed and breakfast, so you can sleep in the missile.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But anyway.
Something to look into.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you really quick. So we've covered, a little bit of your getting into the military, your time in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and, your involvement with the Cold War even. And so I just want to know, like, what role does your faith have in your journeys? I'm sure you saw some hardship.
Well, I became a Christian after Christ when I was 16.
16.
I had to go through a lot of personal problems, but anyway, so and I always live as close as you should. But anyway, so when I had a Bible, but when I went to Navy, they gave us the Testament, and you can look at it today, and I can still read the scripture I underlined. I can still read it. The red's still there. But in the front, it says, you got the letter from the President of the United States. It said, encourage all servicemen to read God's words to give you strength and guidance, signed by the President Roosevelt.
Wow.
And another page you'll see in there, it said, only put your name and nothing else, name, serial number, but no ship, because the enemy may get hold of that New Testament and find out where you're located.
Wow.
That page and the letter from the president, and you can see it, and a picture of an American flag in it, but I wore it wherever I went, and that encouraged me more. And so that Testament's been in many houses and different places on it. And I really have true faith in God, that what this world is coming to today. Yeah. And I started telling about Korea and where I try to witness in one. When I went to China, Charles went with me. We went to a mission trip in China when I was up in the 70s, Fenway, from a group from Second Baptist Church.
Oh, okay.
And there were two groups. We were on an advanced group to lay out what's going to happen, and then the second group come later. But anyway, so as we enter China, you have one Bible. Now you can hide more. Now we took vitamins and things like that. Same way we went to Russia. But in China, it's very unusual country. So they checked, but anyway, here's my Bible. And they checked your Bible. And same way going in Russia, when I'm in Moscow, I did mission work over there.
And you went with your wife as well?
No.
Oh, okay, she wasn't on those.
She's bad health, and she wasn't able to go. She wasn't. Yeah. But anyway,
What were the Chinese checking your Bible for?
They just want to see what's in it.
They just want to see what's in it. Okay.
And they check other things. But we worked with a Baptist missionary over there, working with Muslims.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so we went to the missionary told us that now we're going to this Muslim home.
Yeah.
And we wanted their daughter to become a Christian 20 miles from home. And she's a nurse, going to nursing school. And so he, 4 or 5 of us. And so we went, of course, he speaks Chinese, and so they greeted us, and he said, now, all of you listen. Now, they're going to ask us to come in and eat. Do not touch the food, just, they know. So we all, it was cold, had a pot runner, and so we went in, and he was talking Chinese to them, and he would tell us what he told them. So that lady house, it was built inside. So anyway, we was talking to them and trying to communicate. And so he, missionary, said, don't accept any food unless I do like this. So she comes in and said, no. Then she comes in with some candy, homemade candy. And they looked at it, and he said, okay, you can take it then. So she passed, the Muslim lady, very friendly, talking. And so she gave each piece of black candy, unwrapped. So we all started chewing on it, and I kept chewing it. And it wasn't, it's so tough. And so I chewed it. I said, well, I got to do something. So no one looking, so took it, put it in my blue jean. And so I don't know what the others did, that they ate it. But anyway, I got home, and the pocket was so glued together. I mean, it's like a super glue. I don't know what kind of candy. It was glue candy, I guess, but I never got that out of that.
It's a good thing you didn't continue on with it. And that was the thing that was okay to eat.
Yeah,
I don't know what was going on with everything else.
But all the young people, they gathered around me, and the commissioner said, he's 70-something years. They couldn't believe, and I got pictures of him. I got arms around these kids. And, but anyway, I said, well, did you tell them about their daughter? He said, no, not yet. But anyway, he explained Christ to them. But I don't think he told at that time, look, your daughter became a Christian. Mm-hmm. And but anyway, I didn't realize Muslim was popular in China. I thought it was there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I know a lot of families will, reject a family member if they become a Christian. So that's a pretty big deal, right? But
the funny thing, he said that we're going up 100-something miles into China from here. We was at Manchuria down the southern part. During World War II, that was where the Flying Tigers was located. The Americans would fly from the Chinese, and they would. Anyway, so we would go on this Chinese road, and we stopped, use the restroom out there. And I looked out there, and this Chinese had a plow, a wooden plow, and he was plowing, had an ox. And I kept looking at it, and I thought, it's an old ox on it and everything. And I noticed he stopped. He pulled out a cell phone.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. And I said, look, I can use a cell phone.
It just feels wrong. Like the two shouldn't go hand in hand. That's so funny.
But anyway, so the missionary took us to the college. He used to teach that and introduced us to some of the student professors. So he said, we'll walk across campus here to another building. So we would walk across. And so anyway, so there were about 10 ping pong tables made out of cement out on campus.
Oh, okay.
And, ping pong. And so the kids, they said, so I stopped watching, So the Chinese kid stopped, handed me the paddle, and play ping pong with the Chinese. So I got it there, and I couldn't.
Right.
So anyway, I played ping pong in China.
That's fun. It's like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Good stuff.
What the clerk told this Joe, he didn't tell very many clerks down in Arkansas. But anyway, he said this old couple sent their daughter off to college, and he said, she wrote back, said, "Dear Mom and Pop, I am enjoying college. However, I have fallen in love with ping pong." And her father said, "I knew she'd fall in love with one of those Orientals."
Oh! That's funny.
I thought that was a cute joke.
That is cute.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that one.
But anyway,
So, no, I love that. I love that.
I went back to Korea 3 times.
Oh, okay.
And I flew back with Charles. He was flying Northwest Airlines, so he took me back to Korea. The odd thing, when I was taking that Busan during the war, the fighting going forward, so Northwest Airlines would fly into Korea at Busan.
Okay.
And I'd see that red plane. And I was, I see it. I thought it was a civilian plane flying north. Well, moving forward, my son Charles got Northwest. He flew into Busan.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I see that, and then Northwest was,
And you named your son after your brother, I noticed.
Yeah.
Right? That's so neat.
Yeah.
And then you recently had the honor of your grandson getting into the military. Weren't you helping with his ceremony with the Arkansas, was it the Air Force?
My grandson?
Yeah, your grandson.
Yeah.
What is his name?
Yeah, his name's Michael.
Michael.
Now,
okay.
he's taking flying lessons.
Okay.
He's doing real well.
That's great.
And at Melbourne, Arkansas, they got a 2-year college there that teaches aviation.
That's neat.
So he's doing well on that.
Well, I think you have a wonderful legacy, and I think it's wonderful that so many of your family members are following in your footsteps.
That's right. But I started telling about one time I went back to Korea, and Charles said, "Now, Dad, I left you out at Busan, and I'll meet you in Seoul in 3 days, and I'll call ahead, let the hotel know you have room." So anyway, I caught this speed train, and Busan, I got on, and it went fast, but the one coach only had one person on it, and he was a South Korean soldier.
Oh.
And I sat down by him, and he was on over here, and I was on the aisle, and I said, "You speak English?" "Yes, I do speak English." And he said, so I asked a few questions to communicate. Now in Korea, a lot of Christians over there, they got the largest church in the world at Seoul,
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people coming to Christ. So I asked him, I said, "You're Christian, you don't cry." Well, I said the wrong word. His face turned red. He has a gun, and he jumped up. "No Christ, no Christ, no Christ, let me out." And he grabbed that gun, and he pushed my leg so it'd get out. But I don't know he's Muslim, but "No Christ." And he went down that aisle, and he said it in language, said it in Korean, and I think he said it in English, but "No Christ, no Christ, no Christ." And they went on out. I thought he was going to use a gun, but anyway.
Oh, that's quite the experience. It's interesting, and out of all of the world religions, Jesus is the name that is the most unaccepted, controversial to the unbeliever.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something to that.
That's
People
right.
should probably stop and consider why.
Yeah.
Why? So I just want to ask you, Mr. Brantley. So we've covered some of the different wars that you've been a part of, and your faith, and your lovely wife, and your child, and your children, and your grandchildren. And so just going forward to the next generation out there, considering where our world is today, what kind of advice would you give them as a military veteran and fighting for this country and standing for the values of our freedom? What does freedom mean to you? What advice would you give them?
I've always been patriotic. And I remember even when I was a kid that on Veterans Day, I was riding my bicycle uptown, and they have a parade. The old veterans from the World War I, and I think one was from Spanish-American War. But anyway, they all walking, and they, maybe 10 of them, and I would ride my bicycle, and I would think about their lives and the war they went through. And then the next year, there would be less, and then next year, fewer. And so I thought, I never thought, I would be there instead of a bicycle. And so they very patriotic, and when I was young, I was always pledged allegiance. And of course, when in school, we back in those days, you have prayer and a pledge allegiance. And but I remember through Lufkin, I was riding my bicycle, and a bunch of Army trucks and tanks came by, a whole convoy. And I was on the back, and they all stopped, a mile of Jeeps. And so I was stopped by this soldier in a Jeep. He said, "Kid, will you mail this letter to me, for me?" And I thought, well, I'll do my patriotic duty. I'll mail a letter for that soldier. And then I thought, well, so it has going to his mother, sweetheart. I didn't know what's in the letter, but it has his address, but it no stamp. They didn't have to post it during the war. Oh. Soldiers, so they write free, no treason. So I got thinking, well, maybe other soldiers need their letter mail. So I stopped every Jeep. I said, "You have a letter?" "Oh, yeah, kid."
I love that.
And finally, the top one, there was a colonel. And I think, and I'm not positive, I think it was either Eisenhower, and when he was a colonel, they took his training, or else Patton. But from the Jeep and from what's on either there was 2-star or 1-star, but anyway, so I think it was a high rank that went to war. I'm not positive. But when I got through, I had a stack of letters that said, so I did my patriotic duties. I went down to the post office, and I thought, I also think about those letters. I wonder how many of those men came back from the war and all that, Yeah. But I always emphasize, the love of country. And I believe that our nation is found on God. I think the Constitution itself was inspired from God, that there's nothing else like it, And the Constitution, so I always have my faith in God that our nation is based on God's laws, And I try to encourage patriotism. And I started taking the Constitution, I studied it more, and I started to realize that, the kids really know the Constitution. And when these young people go down to recruiting station, and it happened to me, it happened to everyone, and they pass the exam, and the last step is you've been sworn in. Yeah. That you're going to defend with your life the Constitution of the United States. Most of those kids don't know what's in there. they never really studied the Constitution. So I started buying Constitution, giving them to the store downtown, and let people pick it up and read what the famous word is.
Yeah.
And so kids don't know the amendments, they don't know anything. So I leave some of the recruiting office I'm going to and say, look, after you complete, tell the soldier to take this Constitution with a buddy and go and sit down for coffee and study it before you swear to defend something you don't know. Yeah. Well, there's a law in the state that if you receive any federal fund, you have to teach called the Constitution Week, which is September 17th through the 31st at Constitution. Well, I checked around some schools not doing it. So anyway, I found the law where it said you have to. So I got an appointment with the superintendent office who's in charge of federal program something. And I told him the law. He said, yes, I know it. We teach it. I said, in September you teach. He said, every grade we emphasize, even lower grades, you can draw a picture of George Washington, something like that. But anyway, kids need to know that how great our country is and how the trouble we're having right now, you know, and the leadership. And it's a different world we're living in than in the past.
Right.
And when,
totally.
by the grace of God, you know, we got to elect the right people that would do something for our great nation. Can you believe in open borders?
No.
I mean, no nation, you know, what's going on. But anyway, they teach it Conway. And
so that's good to know.
That's
I'm glad
right.
to hear that.
That's
I was wondering.
Went to up north here on a Hoover Spring. Hoover Spring. Yeah. I went up there. They wanted me to talk up there 2 years ago, and the lady picked me up. We went up there, and they had a ceremony at the high school, and all these kids, and you know. And they had the ceremony of how to fold a flag. And so they were folding it, and I didn't know it was going to take place. So I was sitting by the lady that drove me up there, and about ready to get up, go to the restroom, and she wouldn't let me. So those boys folded the flag, then they came over and presented it to me.
Oh, that's special. That's so good.
But anyway,
I love that.
Then we went down, it was cold that day, and then we went down to courthouse and Representative Francis Hill was talking, you know. Yeah, and but anyway, so I was talking to him, and so the lady said, "Well, I'll take you back." I said, "No, I'll tell you what. Representative Hill will be going through Conway to back home. I'll ask him for a ride."
Yeah.
So he said, sure, I'll take it home. So anyway, Representative, he brought me home, and he brought me here, and he came in and looked at my apartment, you know.
Great, yeah.
But anyway, I got acquainted with Charlie Nabho. Mm-hmm. You know him. Mm-hmm. He's the head of the Nabho company.
Okay, neat.
And anyway, I visited him, and he's a Catholic church here. And but anyway, so we were driving back, and of course Francis Hill, Catholic. So I get a phone call that Hill said, "Thank you, Floyd, for coming by and meeting me." And I thought, well, hold the line just a minute. So I gave the phone to him, Representative Hill.
Yeah, right.
And he said, "What you doing driving around Floyd Brantley?" And they both could.
Your world's got smaller.
Yeah,
that's neat.
Sure
so,
is. But anyway,
so yeah.
he enjoyed my apartment.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's wonderful. It's very patriotic. I'm enjoying being in your home.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time and inspiration, especially to the next generation.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to recap on that, just to get back to the appreciation of our country and, teaching the fundamentals that our country was based on and founded on.
But when we returned from service, and even though the boy has been in the war for 4 or 5 years, when you get back to America, many of them would kiss the ground. It may be cement, but they kiss the ground. Yeah. This great country, American. And I see even crippled soldiers try to get off, and they're so happy to be back to this greatest country in the world.
Because it is. It is the greatest country, and we need the younger generation to see that value that you guys fought for.
I don't know if I gave you a copy of that George Washington story.
I actually have it, and I found this to be phenomenal. His story is not taught, what he experienced with basically an angel showing him.
That's right.
Right? It's phenomenal. So and you wrote this. Is you got this together from a collection of what he had written?
Well, I tell you what, I spoke at a group down at the school in Monticello, Arkansas, and a lot of the people down are very patriotic, and that was on the table, and I picked it up, and I called that lady that did arrange. I taught all the kids about World War II, and they were very interested in these 5th, 6th, 7th graders, and so anyway. So I got reading that, and so I called Ms. Miller. I said, "Where did you get this book? I only had one left." And she told me the Tea Party, they're very strong down there, and she had that. But anyway, and this doctor did research, and his name on there. And so it's authentic. And so I have sent it to many of the representatives and the congressmen about it. And
so you collected it together. I saw your name inside here, but it's basically a prophecy that George Washington had seen about the country.
But everyone thought that's really fascinating, and on that story. Yeah. But it's a true story, but the president didn't bring that out.
Right.
Maybe the speechwriter didn't know it or what, but...
Well, and then... I just want to hit on the amazing moment of finding out that you were born in 1925.
That's right.
And so you have a birthday.
That's AD, not BC.
Right. Don't worry. So your birthday's coming up in October, right?
Yeah, 16.
And you will be 99?
That's right. Oh, you turned upside down.
I love that. Yeah.
I went to eye doctor not long ago, and I'm going to add something to it. I want to. Anyway, so they said, your health card, the name, when's your birthday? And I said, well, it's right down there. And she said, 1925? I said, yeah. I said, that's AD, not BC. And she laughed. and then she said, go to the next lady. Well, she said, when's your birthday? And I thought, there must be some slow learners around here.
Right.
I said, I told the custodian my birthday, and I told her birthday, and you won't know it again. Well, we have to ask. Now, what's your name? Let's see.
Yeah. Well, you have all your faculties about you. You're very, very with it, I must say. No, and you're still riding a bike when you can, or at least at the gym, the gym's bike, but you own a bike. I see it in the next room over, and quite inspirational.
But, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, I was in a big dam race.
Oh, yeah.
And I did 25 miles in 5 hours and 13 seconds.
And you were in the New York parade for the veterans. And didn't you lead it then? Weren't you one of the leaders of the group?
Yeah.
With your bike?
On that, I didn't tell much on that parade. Well, they had the floats for the World War II. They had all wheelchair,
Yeah.
and most of them. And then you had the Korean float, and then Vietnam, and then the others wars, the Iraq War, and they was marching.
Right. Right.
So I rode my bike. I was 90, and on the I was on the side. I have 90. I was 90. Been blessed, and then I had the name of all the men that served in World War II. I knew, and then the one that was killed, I had a gold star for those, and people could see it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
as I ride my bike in between all the floats.
Yeah.
And then, and then from the side street, the policemen on motorcycle, they would come in and join me. And all these people, they would start clapping. I didn't know they were clapping for policemen. Well, they all reaching out and shake my hand. I was on the bicycle. I stopped, and they couldn't believe a 90-year-old veteran out there riding a bicycle.
And almost 99 now. They'll need to
That's
invite
right.
you back. Well, that's beautiful,
And
beautiful
then
memory.
I went
yeah.
to the viewing stand, and the judges kind of looked at each other. What in the world is a 90-year-old man doing on a bicycle?
Well, I want to shake your hand, and I
Okay.
want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
for your time, and thank you for just giving so much to this
Oh,
country.
we
We love
love
you
you.
very much. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Mr. Brantley.
Thank you very much.